What's up, you guys? Today's animated series review is about a scientist who was accidentally turned into a plant-like monster after discovering the secrets of life restoration, and I'm talking about Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, the animated series, aired in 1990 with only 5 episodes, barely making it one season. The story takes us deep into the murky swamplands, focusing on a scientist named Alec Holland, whose mission was to unlock the secrets of biogenetics, allowing the growth of anything in its environment to provide sustenance and life to help all of mankind. But when his lab was intruded by an evil scientist named Anton Arcane alongside his 3 cronies whose purpose was to obtain all of his research on the formula which can grant him immortality, after Holland declined his offer of payment, they both ended up in a dispute, causing Holland's lab to be vandalized. This led to all the chemicals to spill on the floor, including the one with the latest formula. Seeing how this is a toxic situation, Arcane and his men vacated the premise, leading the lab to explode with gas and flames to fume the air. To his surprise, Holland luckily managed to escape the poisonous atmosphere and dove straight into the nearest swamp. This allowed his body to intertwine with all of the chemicals' reactions, including the nature that surrounds him, thus mutating into a monster now known as Swamp Thing. Throughout this short-lived series, Swamp Thing tries to find the cure to his transformation, but unfortunately is attacked by Arcane and his men who want to capture him, all for the sake of his DNA, to be used for Arcane's personal agendas. However, Swamp Thing is assisted by some fellow allies like Tomahawk, a Native American, Bayou Jack, a Vietnam veteran, Abigail Arcane, the stepdaughter of Anton Arcane who wants to help Swamp Thing become human again, and 2 goofballs named Delbert and JT who help Swamp Thing on different tasks. Mind you, they look similar to 2 characters from Captain Planet. In regards to the villains, at first they started off human-like, but later were transformed into creatures with temporary powers called the Unmen within this machine called the Transducer. Through coincidence, Anton was also accidentally hit with the formula which also altered his look sporadically through time. So within the Unmen group you have Anton Arcane, the evil scientist who turns into an arachnid, Dr. Demu, a voodoo doctor who turns into a snake, Skin Man, a zombie-like person who turns into a man-bat, and Weed Killer, a man with a gas mask that turns into a leech. Within its 5-episode run, Swamp Thing and his allies do their best to stop the Unmen from finding valuable resources that can be used for evil like mutation torpedoes, magical trees, radiated satellites, ancient burial grounds, and other various agendas involving the environment for the sake of being evil. Majority of the time, Arcane's main purpose is to solely seek eternal life with the Fountain of Youth, which is the only episode with a cool concept in my opinion, while causing a little havoc. Swamp Thing at first looked very intimidating with his appearance, but as the episodes progresses, he ends up making jokes, and regardless of some cool powers, he gets his vines kicked and often gets captured a lot. Not to mention, he's actually very well spoken and considered a pretty nice guy. Even if something goes wrong, he usually gets saved from his allies who annoyingly call him Swampy. The characters are given these vehicles to travel through different terrains and swampy areas to reach certain locations, but one of the more unsettling things about this show are the voice acting, where some characters are pretty cool and others are just poorly casted with very highly pitched sounds. When you get to the last episode, there's hope in thinking Swamp Thing would turn human again by Dr. Wily, who captured him for his cell structure under the wrong impression, but unfortunately an altercation with Arcane prevented this from happening, thus stalling his transformation over a period of 5 years until the lab, research notes, and bioanalyzer can be fixed and replaced. But in general, the storyline is pretty simple, as it's your generic villains trying to gain power but never actually do so, as the heroes always win. Arcane ends up stating he will not give up until he has the secrets to become immortal. Not much else can be said about it, as there's not much character depth in regards to their individual backgrounds, although it's cheesy yet somewhat semi-entertaining if you're interested in knowing other DC characters, but the action kind of lacks in suspense for an early 90s cartoon. It feels more like a low-budget 80s production instead. This show is tolerable to say the least, with the pilot airing a year before the other 4 episodes were released. If there were more seasons, maybe the show can improve, as Swamp Thing does contain some deep storylines in a story arc, but I guess not even the theme song, which is a parody of Chip Taylor's Wild Thing, can save this cartoon from being cancelled. With its negative reviews and failing to attract an audience at the time, the action figures did somewhat gain a little momentum but didn't get the spotlight it intended for, as its idea of a darker toned cartoon with the concept of keeping the environment safe went over children's head, making them less desirable to know more about. Therefore, Swamp Thing the animated series gets a C-/C. Thanks for watching, give a like and subscribe for more animated series reviews, and stay tuned for the next episode.